My name is Frank, I'm from Germany, and I'm interviewed by AJ and Jörg because I'm a passionate kickoff player and also a retro gamer. And you're listening to the Scene World podcast. Come join us.
It's the Scene World podcast. My name is AJ. That guy over there is Jörg.
As always.
And today, we'll be talking to the developers of Metro Siege, which should be playing a demo behind me, but it is not. Play a demo, damn it.
Right.
So,
nice.
Yes. So we'll be talking to them in a little bit. Before that, though.
Well, to them, actually, one person, Alex Brown.
Yeah. So we'll be talking to the developer in a second. But before we do that, there is some news to hit up on.
Right.
So
I got two pieces, and well, anyway, we should talk about the name of the game, shouldn't we? Before we jump to the music. So we will be talking to Alex Brown, one of the developers of Metro Siege, a brawler for the Amiga, and that is why you see it in the background playing, actually.
On my Amiga.
If you are looking at the YouTube version of this podcast episode. And it will be a cross-playing release, and that's very fancy, over browser and PC. So doesn't matter where you are at, even Linux or whatever, because browser works everywhere, right? And you can play with your Amiga and your PC and your browser somewhere else together.
And there's also another thing with this, which is that with the Amiga version, with Amiga games, it's always a little bit of hit and miss. Some games need, that original, like 1.3 Kickstarter. Some games need newer ones. Some, certain things don't work on the certain, upgrades. Like I've got Monkey Island, for instance. I have a 68020 upgrade and the ACA 500, all this other stuff going on there. And Monkey Island plays, but there's no audio. So this game plays on both the unexpanded machine and on all the stupid things that I've plugged into mine. So
that's also part of the interview.
Yeah, it's really solid.
The audacity of making it compatible to as many hardware as possible.
Right.
Which is actually the same pain we went through with our Discmac for the C64. Yeah.
So that's in a little bit.
Right.
In a while.
Yeah, right. But before, though, I actually got two pieces of news.
Okay.
One piece is that our Venezuelan retro friend Petro Planas released already a year ago, but anyway, it's nice to mention it. On Amazon Music, his album Wild Bits.
Okay.
And it contains two music tracks. One is Nothing Here, and the other one is Wild Bits Arise. And
so there's two songs on the album.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's more like a
single.
Yes, sort of. Yeah. There's a oh god, what is it? LP or something? Is that? No, that's a long play. God, there's a term for it. I can't think of what it is.
In Germany, we would say single.
A single is that's when you release a. That's like one song off of an album, though.
Exactly, yeah. And sometimes there is a second track to fill the space. Right.
Well, there usually is a B-side. But...
Well, on a CD, there is no B-side.
Oh, no, they're I guess they're EPs.
Okay, well,
Extended plays.
I see. I never had a record player as a kid, so...
Yeah, an extended play.
Only the one from my mom for a few weeks, but
so so it says an LP is a music recording that contains more tracks than a single, but fewer than an album or LP. So I guess it could either be a single or an EP, then depending on what your definition of that is. They say it's a mini album, so. And we've used some of his songs, some of his music in our videos. I think I believe I used his music when I did the video for God, what was that game that we walk around in the woods and stuff? I can't remember what it was. I did a review. One of the few reviews I've done.
Walking around in the woods. It's not Forbidden Forest on.
No, it's not. It's I'm gonna have to look it up now. we'll speed this bit up just in case. Good lord. Oh, it's gonna be.
While you're looking at it,
we have shorts. Wow, I didn't know we had shorts.
Yeah, I did some.
Okay, cool, beautiful. I'm discovering things about software reviews.
About ourselves.
Yeah, about our own YouTube page that I didn't know. Okay.
I mean, just look for HA and then you should find it.
I'm looking for that. Yeah, I'm trying to, but I'm not seeing. Oh, stop playing in my ear while I'm trying to find myself. Come on. 28. Oh, I got 28 videos. Let's see. Should we? No. I'm not seeing it there. Oh, God. Rogue Spirit. Okay. Oh, wow, that was way more.
You found it. You found it in the list.
I found it. Yeah, it was way at the bottom.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was way more difficult to remember than it should have been.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, but I used his music in that, and I think I used it somewhere else, and I'm not even going to try to guess what that was because it was a while ago. We've had his music within our own stuff, so he's cool with that, and he makes decent stuff to listen to. So
nice. Yeah. All right, and the other second bit of news. Finally, the Retro Racer Super Polygon Grand Prix got released on Steam.
Okay.
For the PC, which is pretty awesome. I like it a lot. It's in early access and it's really, really polished, despite being still early access. I'm very, very happy about it, I have to say.
So it's Super Polygon Racer?
Yeah, Super Polygon Racer. No, Super Polygon Grand Prix, I said.
I see. Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's in Steam, it's listed as SP Grand Prix.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is some yeah. Yep. Oh, this looks like a Super Nintendo game. That's nice.
Retro Racer was actually done on the Mega Drive, not Super Nintendo. But
okay.
It was actually the only game that used polygons and accelerator chip because it was too expensive, so Sega decided to not use it for any other games. Right. Imagine you are challenging the Super Nintendo with their Super FX chip, and you make your own chip for the Mega Drive, right? And then you decide, oh, it's too expensive, let's not use it. Just for one game. All the development costs for nothing. Nothing. Yeah. So bad.
Yeah.
It's a nice game, though.
I say it looks more like a Super Nintendo, though, because the Genesis had, I think there were fewer colors available to it, so you had a lot of dithering, whereas the Super Nintendo did not have the dithering. So, and that's what I'm seeing mostly with the graphics, is that there isn't a whole lot of dithering there. It's more like a full, a wide color palette.
I mean, it's a PC after all.
Yeah, I know. But
bit tired today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a headache too. I don't know why.
Must be me because I'm so horrible.
Nah. No, it was long before I was in the call here.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, so it had the display could do had a 512 color palette and could display 61 on screen at a time.
Nice.
So that was, versus the Super Nintendo, which had give me some stats. You're not giving me any stats. Okay, hardware specs, video. Okay, so that could show up to 256 from a palette of 32,768 colors. So yeah, there's a lot less dithering on the
right. That is also
SNES.
while the Sega CD releases of Rebel Assault looked horrible because the FMVs actually got dithered down due to lack of colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the game was originally developed for the PC and then it was converted to the Sega CD.
Right.
Yeah. But a similar issue, we mentioned it in the last podcast episode, news section, actually had Monkey Island on the Amiga, but they did a better job in... But they didn't convert the graphics. They recreated the graphics actually for the Amiga. Yeah. That's the difference. But the Rebel Assault game was actually converted, which makes sense because it was FMV.
Right.
I mean, it's not like you can easily 100% recreate a video recording. It's not possible, you know.
Right.
In contrast to still pictures, where it's super, super easy.
Right. Yeah.
Nice. So that would be my 2 news.
Okay. I got 4, potentially.
Nice.
Number 1 is Megastyle, who is I believe they're a German group. I knew some people from Megastyle. I don't know if they're still in it, though. They
also did the Deer Master for Windows.
Okay. Well, was
that group, right? From America? Megastyle? No?
No, Megastyle was an American group. Megastyle, I think, was German.
I got it wrong.
Make me look now. I'm pretty sure because the people I knew that were in Megastyle.
Now I confused. Now I confused. Oh wow! Now I confused. What?
Norway.
Yeah,
Norway. Okay, well, there you go. Norway.
Both of us were mistaken.
Yeah.
Neither Germany no America. Norway. Okay. So what about the?
Okay. Anyway, so yes, in Norway, Megastyle has released a game called Mega Invaders, which is a redo of Invaders, but for the Mega 65.
Nice.
And we've talked about that. It will not currently work in NTSC mode, only in PAL at the moment. It's available on itch.io, and there's also instructions on how to set up the Zemu emulator to play it if you've got not a Mega 65. And this is something that I talked about a while ago, in that I really, really want a Mega 65, but at the same time, like, I cannot justify getting one because
dedicated software is missing.
Right, yes, there isn't a library. Like the C64, the Amiga, they have a library of thousands and thousands of things that was built up over years, right? And so like even if I'm not using it as a utility, I've still got stuff I can do with it. You know, or in the you know, even if I want to do something utility-wise with it, the Amiga has, you know, the newest version of Amiga OS was released last year. You know, like 3.1.3.2 or what, I don't know. I've got it on here, and I mean I've got C64 OS on the C64 that we talked to Greg Nasu a couple of podcasts ago. So there's still stuff being developed, but there is already an infrastructure there. So I can go and look at this library of games and, okay, here's some stuff I can play. The Mega 65 has, so the Commodore 65 had a demo disc that was made. So this is show what it can do. That's about all I've seen on a Commodore 65 or a Mega 65 is that little demo disc that you would get with it. So now they're making the Mega 65 computer, and what is the point of having it without that? You know, yeah, you can get one and use it as a C64 emulator. But I can get a C64 emulator to do that. You know, I can get a C64 for a couple $100.
Or you get a recreation like the Ultimate 64.
Right. Or
you get a re-implementation like the Commodore 64 from Jens Schoenfeld.
Right. Yeah, the Mini was sitting back
there. The reloaded. No. Jens Schoenfeld was the reloaded. The Mini was actually Darren Melbourne.
That was Darren Melbourne. Yeah, and there's another one too. There's I can't think of it. It's another motherboard. That's I can't think of what it's called right now, but there's another one out on the market that it's just a motherboard you got to populate with chips and stuff, but it's available. Yeah, I would rather do that than get something that I wouldn't be able to use in its full, ability. Because the C65 and especially the Mega 65, because they've kind of enhanced some of the things with that, has a lot of abilities, but again, like nothing uses it.
There's by the way something. So I will say remove that I will cut here. There's by the way something that is that I will remove from the final intro.
Okay.
That is, we got an invite from Darren Mayburn, an email when we released the latest SeaWorld issue.
Yeah.
Like, we are invited in a secret presentation at Gamescom.
Ooh,
where
really?
he is behind closed doors showcasing to us his next secret project. Yeah.
Well, now.
And you probably know that the German Koch Media actually got renamed last year to Play On.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because all non-Germans pronounce it cock. And they thought, now that we go more international, we should have a better name, So we got a real presentation at Play On with Darren Mayburn himself. Nice. So that we spoke to him 8 years ago when nobody else wanted to talk to him because, the Mini was vaporware because everybody was hating him for no reason.
Well, and we also we had him with the Atari 400 Mini.
And the Amiga Mini and so on.
Right,
so now we are getting our reward and we are getting something super secret shown.
Nice. Very nice.
So I can't tell you what it is because I don't know, but it's like super.
I'm sure,
and it must
I'll know as soon as it happens.
And it must be super important because despite the head of PR from PlayOn was on holiday, he sent us an email with an appointment. And Germans normally don't answer emails within their holidays. We Germans are like, I'm on a holiday, I don't give a shit.
Right.
But since there were only 2 weeks left, it must be something very, very incredible for Darren Mayburn. So anyway, now I say remove ending. It's actually quite nice that we have Descript. I can just say remove, and then I will search for the word remove multiple times.
Yeah.
And then I will know where to cut. Cut. It's easy. It will look weird in the script, but it works.
Right.
Anyway, what else have you got?
All right. So aside from that, so that Mega Invaders is available. You can download that. We'll put a link in the description below, and also a link to where you can find the C65 emulator, Zemu, which apparently setting it up is a kind of a pain because of licensing things.
Ooh, of course.
Because who owns the C65 ROMs,
Clayon, I think. Clayon?
The C65 ROMs? Cloanto, you mean?
Cloanto. I don't know.
I don't know. I know that I think that the Mega 65 project is using their own ROMs, which are based on those ROMs, but they've been altered a little bit because the ROMs weren't finished to begin with. But we'll put links to where you can get all that stuff. Anywho.
Nice.
Also, more games. There is a downloadable version for Windows, Mac, and Linux, apparently, which is an unofficial remaster of Alone in the Dark.
Nice.
Right. So this says that it's Tattoo Teams, Tatao, Tatou.
Which is interesting because THQ Nordic earlier this year actually released their own remaster of. No, it's not a remaster, it's a reboot, I think.
Right.
Of Alone in the Dark. So
yeah, so this is a faithful, nearly 1-to-1 remake of the original game.
Oh, okay.
With a remastered soundtrack, completely new graphics and redesign, but keeping as faithful as possible to the original game.
Nice.
And a walkthrough from the original game will be able to get you through this one from start to finish in the exact same way.
Makes sense.
So yeah.
Nice.
So it is a remake, but it's a one-to-one remake.
Nice.
With graphics and some game mechanics being completely revamped.
Nice.
So yeah. So it's I guess Tattoo, whatever is a French team, because that is Tattoo is the French name for armadillo, which was Infogram's original logo back in the day. When they
that's true. Yeah.
So that's available where you can download that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's French because there's a French version of the website.
Nice.
Yeah. So we'll put a link to where you can download that. It looks pretty good.
Awesome.
The system requirements are it supports both Intel and Apple Silicon Macs. Needs a octa-core processor with at least 2.4 gigahertz or higher. Windows 10 or 11. A modern AMD Radeon or NVIDIA graphics card. That's
should be manageable.
Yeah. So that's available. Put a link there if you can find it.
Awesome.
Core i64, which is it's an online store for C64 stuff. The guy is working on retro engineering the CMD drives. He's also
Didn't we mention that a couple of times?
We did, but okay. They are changing. They're changing their product distribution model, which pertain to all the 3D models that they sell. And I guess they sell quite a few 3D models, as well as all the electronic projects, with the exception of CMD. So he says that they're going to begin transitioning all the 3D printed products from the shop to a shared project site in PCBWay, as well as the Core i64 Shapeways account. This will allow customers to select their preferred colors, materials, and even the type of print.
Nice.
And they're also opening up commercial reselling of their products. So all you need to do is attribute it to them. That means that any person or retro shop may bulk purchase any of the 3D printed products and resell them.
Nice.
So, and Thomas Christoph, who is the guy that runs it, says he will no longer be producing any of the 3D printable designs, other than those.
Which is why he's giving it away. Okay.
Yeah, other than those related to the CMD stuff.
Because of license issues.
Yeah. So that's around. So that's there. So
nice.
Check out those things. I love the fact that they're making new FD drives. I really, really want one. Maybe one of these days. And my last bit, and I'm surprised you didn't catch this one. There is the new Yandex retro game battle has been open. So registration. We got a bit of time. It's 347 days until deadline.
Wow. I'm actually surprised that they are still doing it.
What's that?
Actually surprised they are still doing it.
Oh, yeah.
All the political turmoil considered.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned a lot of times in this podcast, Yandex doesn't want to be Russian anymore.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Now that you have to consider most operations is done in the Netherlands, and now the Russian former HQ is mostly like a sidekick. So it's like, wow.
So this is, and again, despite it being called the Yandex Retro Game Battle, it really only applies to the ZX Spectrum. So the game must run on the original ZX Spectrum 48K or 128K computers.
Which makes sense because the best games, seriously, for the Spectrum in the last 10 years were all coming from Russian game developers.
Yeah. So
each one of them.
Yeah. So finished game must be uploaded no later than July 28th, 2025.
Whoa, so almost a year from now.
Voting for audience choice starts August 7th, 2025, and summarizing and awarding the winners will take place on August 30th, 2025. And the prizes for first place gameplay is first place. Well, it's 30 rubles first place, 20 rubles second place, 15 rubles third place, and that goes for, there is a category for gameplay, graphics, and sound. And then the audience choice is a 20,000 rubles thing. So,
do they also have a judgment panel consisting of game industry figures like last year?
So they have. Oh, okay. So let's go to euros, because what did I say? It was $30,000. $30,000 is the 30,000 rubles. I'm sorry, not dollars. 30,000 rubles is the first place, which that translates to about I put in 2 million, about $330 US dollars, and for the Europeans in the crowd, that's about 300 euros.
Not bad.
Yeah. So yes, they have. There are the judges. I don't know. Oh, come on, guys. I'm looking at the English version of the page, but excuse me for a second. Look how they spelled judges. You can't really see that.
I don't.
Judges. That's not how you spell judges, guys. But okay. Mikhail Sudikov, Simon Butler.
So you mean Judge Dredd didn't have a spelling error in his name?
No.
All the movie long.
Yeah. So the judges for this are Mikhail Sudikov, who is a former journalist at Game.exe, has the largest collection of licensed games for the ZX Spectrum in Russia. Simon Butler, one of the original pixel artists from the 80s. He was a graphic artist for Ocean Software.
Oh, so they got some international.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark Jones also worked at Ocean Software. Andre Liao, former founder of the blog Planeta Sinclair and member of the Load ZX Museum. El Mundo del Spectrum, the Spanish reference media about the ZX Spectrum in Spain. And Alan Turvey, a lifelong gamer and huge advocate for homebrew development on vintage machines. And Oleg Senin, an employee of the Yandex Museum.
Yeah, that's the one we interviewed.
Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So it's good to see that Yandex is still holding up the torch.
Yeah, and so we'll put a link to where people can find that and then sign up for updates. And you got about a year to make a game. So, it's not going to be one of those things where it's like you got a month and a half to figure out what the game is and code it and all that stuff.
It's a game. Games are getting more and more complex, even on retro hardware.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's there. And that's what I've got.
Wow. Just got an email from Amazon on oh my god. I never wanted to pay for Apple Mail. And 2008 when I got my iPhone,
right,
the only service that allowed unlimited mail receiving and sending via IMAP was AOL Mail, right?
Right.
And at that point they had like different domains you could pick from.
Right.
And now I just got an email that the domain ending games.com will be discontinued on October 11th.
Oh, okay.
That means I have to look what accounts I have on which services that use games.com, because that email address will just stop working.
Yeah.
No forwarding, nothing. Wow, they can't be serious about it. they are totally shutting down games.com as an ending. So that means I will probably get, because I guess I will also get an email about aimmail.com. That is what you got back in the day when you had AM Messenger.
No, I never got that. I had AIM.
Got it. I
had AIM. I never got AIM mail.
Yeah. So that means all those domains from AOL will be shut down. Oh my god. So there will only be AOL.com left. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Are they really so much in financial trouble that they need to cancel those domains? Wow.
Well, I mean, AOL doesn't exist anymore. It's owned by Yahoo now, I believe, or Oath, I think it's called.
Right.
So, I mean, AOL has been kind of,
wow.
It's not a dial-up world anymore. So they don't really have, they still have a couple of customers in like really remote areas where you can't get, a high-speed line, but generally speaking, it's a web portal.
Wow. Wow. Well, but the whole domain being shut off, that's a bummer. That means I have to reconfigure my iPhone email address, because that's my iPhone email address. I have to look what other servers are using it, and I have to change it everywhere, because if I forget my password, I cannot reset it without a working email address.
Yeah.
So I would lose access to my account. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will also have to look where I have secondary email addresses as backups and remove those. That would be LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on. Because I and PayPal, all those places, I have to remove that email address. Oh my god. That will be quite an undertaking. But I still got time till October 11th.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway. Not really retro related, but anyway, sad.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say that AIM and AOL are kind of retro, because I mean, there is a retro project to bring AIM back, the P3OL. And AIM was definitely, I mean, that was 20 years ago. That was a really big thing. It's been gone for a while now, so I guess it could be considered, that's pretty retro at this point.
That means I will need a new mobile email address. That also means I have to change my signature, because right now in my email signature says like, want to send email to my iPhone? Send it to navcom@games.com.
Well, there you
go. Wow, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But hey, I will find a replacement. Yeah. I mean, in the worst case, I can just say navcom@aol.com or whatever.
Right.
And make a new AOL account.
Yeah. Why would you need to pay for Apple Mail?
Because it's not free. You cannot register. You cannot get a free email account from Apple for free.
I've got an @me.com address. I've never paid for it.
But that's probably because you are a Mac user.
It shouldn't make any difference. I mean, you're an iPhone user. It's basically the same thing.
No. You cannot get a free email address.
Did you have an Apple ID?
Yeah.
Then you should be able to get Apple Mail. Yes, when you create an Apple ID and set up your iCloud Mail account, you'll receive 5 gigabytes of free iCloud storage.
I don't have iCloud Mail.
No, it says when you create an Apple ID and set up your iCloud Mail account, you'll receive 5 gigabytes of free iCloud storage for your mail, photos, and content. But yes, so it's the iCloud Mail is free.
Yeah, but I'm talking about 2008.
I've had it longer than that.
And we are talking about Germany. You are in America. When I signed up for my Apple ID in 2008, I was asked to pay for it, and I was like, no, thank you.
I mean, I never used mine. All it does is collect spam, but
So where you can say I can get a free iCloud email?
Right here. Where's the chat thing? Oop. You sign in with your Apple ID, and it'll let you create an email address there.
Huh. And how much is the space?
5 gigs.
Oh, that's okay. Is it POP3 or IMAP?
It's IMAP, I believe. Well, it's either one. I think I don't know what mine's set up to be. I think mine is set up for a POP3, but that's just because that's how I like to do that.
So it's iCloud/mail. Let's try that. Okay. Interesting thing is when I visit it, I'm getting the site in Russian for whatever reason.
That's weird.
I never knew that, but hey, perhaps I do that. Perhaps
Yeah.
I getting an official iCloud email address then.
Yeah, I got it back when it was still me.com, but and they've kept that. That's still what it is. I think it's where is it?
Okay.
AJ Heller at iCloud.com. Oh, it isn't iCloud.com. Okay, never mind. I thought it was no, wait, AJ Heller. Oh no, okay, that's a different thing. Sorry.
Okay, nice. Weird. Anyway, before we rail off, let's head to Australia and talk to Alex Brown. Bye-bye.
Wow. Okay.
Today, we have another guest, and today it's actually from Australia, Alex Brown, and we will be talking about Metro Siege, which is a brawler that is about to come out for the Amiga and is actually also ported to the PC. And you are the developer of the game. Welcome to the podcast show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Very early for you, very late for me, and in the middle for HA. It's never easy to get 3 time zones coordinated. So very nice. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the first question obviously would be, how did you get involved into retro computing and stuff? And what did lead to make your own game finally? I mean, brawlers we've seen a lot, and personally, from my point of view, Metro Siege seems to be a lot like Final Fight. At least some ideas were borrowed from there. So perhaps tell us your story if you like.
I mean, yeah, so how did I get into retro computing? I guess it's just obviously as a kid, I was into computers from a very early age. 8 bits, and then when I finally, I used to look at the magazine covers of Amiga games and just drool over how amazing the graphics were compared to the monochrome 8-bit computer that I was using at the time. And finally I got one. I used to do a lot of programming on that when I was a kid. Games, I didn't release anything. I didn't really have the maturity to actually finish a project back then. But then when, my family sort of got to the point where I had more free time, then I started looking back at getting into the Amiga again. I actually had done a little bit of programming, ironically, on the engine management system of my car that I was racing at the time, which kind of, weirdly enough, reverse engineering that is a bit like retro computing, similar sorts of processes and tools and that sort of stuff. So that sort of thought, maybe I should have a look at doing an Amiga project. And then, so that was about 2016, I think. And I did a little game on the Amiga called Blocky Skies, which was one of the sort of first in a string of new productions that came out around that time. There was a game I think called Tanks Fury, which was just before Blocky Skies, and I'm not saying Blocky Skies kicked off the retro revolution by any means, but that was sort of when a lot of people maybe my age, their kids have just got to the point where they don't need as much time and they've got more free time for themselves. And so, yeah, a lot of production started coming along around then, and it's really accelerated since then, which is awesome. So as far as Metro Siege, Michael Parent, one of our partners from Bitmead Canon, he's had a mock-up for Metro Siege that he'd done for a long time, and he's a brawler. He loves brawlers and always has since he was a kid. So, and played them throughout his whole life, and he'd always wanted to do a brawler just perfectly for his taste. And he also wanted to show what he thought could be done on an Amiga 500 in the genre. And so, in collaboration with Pixel Glass, John Takaris, who he and I had just done a game called Worthy for the Amiga in, I think, 2018, we got together with Michael and Corey from Bitbeam and decided to have a go and see what we could do on the Amiga. And inspiration, like you mentioned, Final Fight. Yes, obviously. I mean, it's a nod to all brawlers. But I think there's also a lot of inspiration from other brawlers of that 90s era as well, not just Final Fight.
One of my favorites actually Double Dragon 2, but I guess that was 89 if I'm not mistaken. So not really 90s, but early 80s rather.
Yeah, so I didn't really play a lot of brawlers, and that's probably because I had an Amiga, and let's face it, the brawlers on the Amiga weren't its strong point.
Final Fight wasn't a really good conversion on the Amiga, right?
It was not. Yeah.
But I used to play Double Dragon at the arcade. That was a really popular game at the arcade. I used to love it. I mean, it was, I think we finished it on our first go through, but we'd do it so many times. We'd go through the motions of just completing that game.
So you say the game was designed to basically like someone's expectations and specifications for how it should be. So how does it differ from other sort of games like that?
Well, yeah, good point. So I mean, there's some differences in the controls, and I guess it's a bit of it's a little bit controversial, I guess, because we do some things a bit differently. For example, the way that we control grabs in the game it's very specific. You have to want to grab. You can't just walk up to an enemy and grab them, which kind of goes against the standard, I guess, of brawler control systems. Similarly, when you're picking up health, we've got a key combination that you have to do, and those were deliberate decisions by Mike because of frustrations when he was playing games at a high level where he wanted to be in more control. And so, Metro Siege obviously not finished. We're working on, balance and all sorts of things and the controls, but that's where those come from. That Mike has a very strong set of ideas about how he thinks a brawler could work. And so, yeah, there's various things like that. Obviously, we've got a relatively complex control system because there's a lot of moves for each player. Far more moves, I think, than other brawlers on the Amiga. And with only 2 buttons, you've got to have some interesting combinations to be able to sort of get 20 different moves out of 2 buttons and 4 directions. So some of the moves can be hard to discover, and there's some moves. We've got a set of moves published, but that's not even a comprehensive list. There's other moves that we've left hidden that people can discover.
Okay.
If I may add, I hope, however, when you do the PC conversion, that you allow mapping those key combinations on the Xbox controller, because personally I'm using Xbox 360 controller, which is the de facto standard for PC games. It's always a frustration if you can't remap controls, And so that is perhaps something, because you have 4 buttons there, even more with the shoulder buttons and the trigger buttons. So hopefully you account for that, because I understand the Amiga and even the C64 only have 2 buttons. So obviously you have to make it different for the Amiga version.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, so we actually released yesterday a web version that you can play in your browser.
Wow. Okay. Didn't know that.
It was only sort of last night that we published that. And so if you go to metrosiege.com/play,
wow,
you can play with a Xbox controller. But at the moment, for the time being, as you say, it's a faithful representation of the Amiga game, even though it is basically the PC version running in a browser. But it's easy, as you said. When you're talking about the PC version, none of these constraints matter. So I think for the time being, it's going to basically be the Amiga version, so people can sort of, who don't have an Amiga, or, you know, maybe they're a C64.
But I don't have, and I'm the C64 fan. So exactly for people like me. Which brings me to my next question. Why don't you have it on Steam yet?
Well, I mean, it's okay. So it's only a demo.
Okay.
You know, Metro Siege.
Okay.
The plan will be there will 100% be a Steam version when we release it.
Okay. So you are not one of those guys putting everything like a demo up on Steam and having it like to be released soon or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, the other thing is we can't make any promises about when the game will be out, because
right.
This is not a serious commercial undertaking. This is a side project for everyone involved. And there have been periods where people haven't been able to commit time to the project, which has slipped it, not through lack of passion or wanting to do it, just because as a side project, it's got to come after family and work and stuff.
Of course.
But also, the main reason we didn't release the demo on Steam is that if you guys can give it a try, the browser version plays great. And it's so easy. We don't have to worry about distribution. It's easy to update, and people can play it on any platform. So, but there will be a Steam version, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I played it a little earlier. I couldn't figure out any of the moves because I just kind of gave it a cursory, playthrough. But I did figure out a punch.
Yeah, I mean, for a brief period of time, we actually had an Amiga version of our Discmac that is released for the C64 for like 3 issues. We did that on a trial, kind of, and we figured it's very, very hard to work with the Amiga community. Unfortunately, there's a lot of fight going on in the background about different Kickstarter versions and Amiga OS versions, and in the end we decided to scrap that. And I don't remember what it's called, but there's an open source solution that we used in the end. I don't know, AJ, you probably know the name of.
I don't actually.
Yeah, so there is an open source ROM that you can use. A lot of emulators come bundled with now the AROS ROM.
AROS was it? Exactly. Yes. So when talking to other game developers, for example, Richard Löwenstein, he actually said he's doing modifications to the game to make it work onto AROS OS as well. How about your game? I mean, what I already know is it's working with a vanilla Amiga 500. How about, as I said, AROS and perhaps other hardware, newer Amigas?
Yeah. So we have 2 versions of the game. When you download the Amiga version, we have the disc version, which is for the vanilla Amiga 500 with a 512K expansion. But we also have the hard drive version, which runs from hard drives, but it's also much more cooperative with the Amiga operating system, which makes it more compatible. And one of the reasons we released this demo is to get a feel for how compatible the game is with all the millions of different Amiga configurations people have. Amiga, Mega Drive, C64, if you release a game for that, you can test it probably on your machine and that's it, and you'll be pretty sure that it's going to work. With Amiga, it's not like that at all. You've got people with different. I mean, you've got 3 different chipsets. You've got I don't know how many different configurations of processors and accelerators, and it's a nightmare. But luckily, so far, it seems to be pretty good compatibility-wise. I mean, it does work with the ARS ROM.
Nice.
We've had reports at working on everything up to Vampires with the Apollo OS, which isn't even Amiga OS. And so, yeah, compatibility-wise, so far, we're looking pretty good. And the reason we had to do that system-friendly version is the other thing that we'll be releasing soon, hopefully, is it's going to be a network co-op.
Wow. Okay, nice.
And the special thing about our network co-op, the thing that I'm excited about and I really hope it works, is that you'll be able to play cross-platform. So someone on their Amiga can join up with someone who's playing the web version and they can play together. And so because we have to have a TCP stack running behind the game to allow that, that's why one of the reasons the game has to be much more cooperative with the operating system than most Amiga games probably are.
Oh.
Interesting.
So I see you did your homework already. Nice.
Yeah. So what hardware would that use to do the network stuff?
So there's quite a few options for the Amiga for networking. That on an Amiga 1200, for example, you can get a PC MCIA network adapter. So it's just a LAN adapter. There's also a thing called Plipbox, which is something that plugs into the parallel port, and it works with that. And then there's we haven't tried it yet, but hopefully one of our fans will try it. Is the PyStorm that's got built-in Wi-Fi module that'll probably work. Obviously, the Vampire has networking. Most of the big box Amigas you can buy networking cards. I've got an accelerator on my Amiga 500 that you can plug a little network adapter on top of, and that works great. So there are options, but let's face it, there's not millions of people out there with Amiga 500s, with Amigas that have got networking, which is one of the reasons we also released. Yeah, there's probably about 50 people in the world, but I'm one of them. So, we released the web version so that we've got people to play against. It's much easier for us to try to coordinate, go to this link, join the server and use this game ID and you'll be playing against me. And we're hoping that we'll have a little badge on the player so that you can see what system they're playing against. So you'll be able to get a kick out of playing against someone with an Amiga, a real Amiga.
Awesome.
Okay. One question I want to ask, because you mentioned briefly in your introduction that next to Final Fight also Double Dragon was also influence, but now the question is which of the 3 arcade games, because we know Double Dragon was kinda good, successful. Double Dragon 2 was very successful, even on the NES, especially, which is a very good port. And as we know, Double Dragon 3 was a disaster, not only because of bugs and many spelling mistakes, but also it was the first game ever introducing microtransactions. So you had to buy weapons and stuff in the store and literally insert your quarters. So it actually had a pay-to-win mechanic. So I hope you didn't have any influence from there. I mean, so Double Dragon is kind of the very good, but at the end also a very bad example of how to not make a brawler. At least from
I don't believe there's much influence from Double Dragon, other than Double Dragon influenced a lot of brawlers and Double Dragon 2. Probably when it comes to fighting mechanics and pace, I would say Streets of Rage 2 would be a bigger influence than those Double Dragon games. And I know Streets of Rage 2 is Michael Parent's favourite brawler, so that probably says something. And I think people have noticed that we do draw influences, not necessarily in the look of the levels, but just in the feel of the game. It draws and pays homage to that game as well. But in general, we try and the game tries to be its own thing. it's hard with a brawler to not draw comparisons. If you set a brawler in a sort of 90s city that's a bit run down, it's obviously going to draw comparisons with Final Fight because that's just the setting.
like I did, yeah.
And if you go to a subway, once again, it's going to draw comparisons. But those cities existed and they had subways and they had people fighting in them. So,
and they still exist.
Is it copying, or is it just the setting? So
right. Well, so let's talk a bit more about the setting. What is unique about the game? So
yeah, okay. So I mean, I guess, how do we get so many moves on the Amiga? Is one question that we get asked a lot. And one thing that this game does quite differently from most other games is it uses a technique called modular animation. So Michael Parent was a developer on mobile games, and so I'm not talking about iPhone games. I'm talking about, I think, the games maybe prior to that, and they were also sort of RAM limited, much like a retro platform. And so they use these modular animation techniques where you take lots of small images and have a system that you can render them with positional information to make larger composite images. And so we heavily use that in Metro Siege. So each character is normally made up of 10 or 11 small pieces, maybe more, depending on if they've got additional components. And every frame is a combination of smaller parts that are drawn just in the right place to give the animation. And so what that does is lets us have heaps of different animation frames, or many more, in the chip RAM that the Amiga has limited, sort of 512K, than would otherwise be able to fit. And so that's one fairly unique thing that we have in Metro Siege. Other than that, level-wise, we do some fairly different things each level. Like the level 2, the level where we have the train moving, that's a very complex set of techniques to achieve that. Having a train moving across the screen at the speed it does is sort of technically not really possible on the Amiga. The Amiga can't move objects that big. So what that actually is that's the background. Okay. So when you normally see a city scrolling, in that case, it's the train is the background, and everything else, the platform, the poles, the players, they're moving against the background or not moving. And so we use some sort of fairly crazy techniques to pull that effect off. But what that means is that each level in Metro Siege tends to be almost like a new game engine.
Wow. Interesting. Which is pretty unique, because normally you have games and you stick to one engine and that's it, and you're not changing it in between. I mean, there have been examples where the coding technique changed in between the stages, and that was actually, interestingly, a Terrakin 3 for the C64, which came out exactly 20 years ago, and you can actually see how the game improved coding-wise level by level, because in the later level it's a lot smoother. It has a lot of different graphical aspects, and I guess it's kind of similar with your game, but it, as I understood, you actually planned it like this. It's not like you have like, oh, okay, that doesn't work, so we do the second level again or something. That's not how you approached it, right? You planned it out from the beginning to use a different technique for a different stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So each level, I guess the levels were pre-planned, the story, and that is pretty much complete. That's one of the Bitbeam Canon tasks, is that they've the story, the characters, the names, the backgrounds, that's all sort of pre-planned. And then the question is, how can we achieve that desired setting and the effects that we want to achieve to get that level? And so that's something that then, and having said that, it's not like the levels are planned out with no regard to the Amiga. Because Michael is he's been playing with the Amigas since he was a kid as well. He understands the limitations and the available resources and what technically might be possible. So when he's coming up with these ideas, he's got that in the back of his mind. And then we have to work together to see if we can realize the vision, because while something might be possible, like in a demo, making it also have enough performance to have a good smooth frame rate can be another challenge. And so we iterate on the levels and have to make compromises to try and get things smooth. Well, I guess you guys haven't played on the Amiga, but the Amiga version runs basically the same as the browser version. It's
AJ did, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I actually I tried to, but I did the mine is expanded quite a bit, and I made the disk for run on stock Amiga, so I had some difficulties. I got to do the hard drive version.
Yeah,
I did play the web version though. That's well implemented.
Yeah, and it basically plays the same. It doesn't really drop frames even on a base A500. Maybe with two players in some levels, if you're in NTSC mode, it might drop frames, but we haven't really spent any time on the NTSC mode. We've just enabled it because NTSC doesn't get much love in the Amiga these days. I guess it's a very European-focused scene. Right. So, I think both the games I previously released, I mean, one of them was 256 pixels high, so it didn't really make sense on NTSC without having to redesign all the levels. So we wanted to just see if it worked on NTSC machines. I tried it on my machine, forced into NTSC mode, and it worked. And it worked on emulators. But let's see and then we'll give it some more love in the final release, where we have to probably tune some of the character speeds and stuff, because it's a little bit quick in NTSC mode at the moment.
Here's an interesting question, because you mentioned it will be network played. It will have network played and crossplay and so on. So will you actually allow it to have updates over the internet?
No, I don't. Not the Amiga version. No, you download it. We even things like the menus, we have to make compromises to make sure everything fits in RAM.
Okay.
And we don't want. I mean, on the hard drive version, we could do much more, but we don't really want the disk version to be the sort of cut down version. We want it to have. We want it to be the full game. So for that reason, I guess all of the versions, right up to the browser version, have got compromises that stem from the fact that it can run in 1 megabyte.
Nice. See, I thought you were going to ask him how are they going to do the networking thing with the differences between NTSC and PAL.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably what will happen is that the NTSC version will just well, if both people are playing in NTSC, it'll be fine. If one's playing PAL and one's playing NTSC, the NTSC version will just slow down a bit.
Okay.
Because the games kind of synchronize their frame rate over the network. So.
Oh, okay.
Actually, a good question, because we made once a live stream with somebody in Canada and me in Germany, and we played NetRacer over the internet for the C64, and my car was running too slow. I never could catch up with the other cars because the game wasn't synchronized like that. So
the cool thing about Amigas is that you like you mentioned, you forced yours into NTSC, and mine's always running in PAL. It's never in NTSC because nothing runs on NTSC. So I've gotten used to just having it by default in PAL mode, which is a thing you can do with Amigas, which you can't do with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said earlier, PAL is by far and away, I guess, just because of the nature of the current scene. Well, not even the current scene. I guess most of the games, probably even in the 90s, Europe was where Amiga was more of a gaming machine.
Yeah.
And so I guess in the United States, the focus was, I guess, to try and get the system into business, whereas the Europeans sort of saw it as a let's just sell this and get games out. So for that reason, I guess demos and games, PAL is the default.
It's a weird thing in the U.S. because I know that Amigas existed in the U.S., but I grew up at that time, and the first Amiga that I ever saw in person is the one that I got like 5 years ago, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and Australia, because we're a PAL country as well, so we had all the European. I mean, I think possibly even that the Commodore distribution back then was run out of the UK for Australia. I think we got the same box combos as they did.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, so we talked about game design. What else is there to say?
Well, why don't we talk about because this has some pretty awesome music in it. Where did that come from, and how did that?
That was actually my next question. Yes.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. So John Shikaris from Pixel Glass, who is a really good pixel artist as well as musician. He developed the music from scratch that we've got so far in those levels. And here's another interesting thing about those music tracks is that so the way that Metro Siege works is it reserves a sound channel for sound effects. But in levels 2 and 3 in the demo, it reserves 2. So levels 2 and 3, they're 2-channel tracks, which to me, not being a musician, makes those tracks even more amazing. Like I'm honestly blown away by the depth of the sound that he's getting out of 2 channels, because one of the channels in those in those 2 levels is reserved for the train sound effects, and especially level 3 where it's a constant chugga 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 of the train as it goes. And in level 2, obviously the train moves in and out of screen, but you can hear it, and you can hear the doors open and close and that sort of stuff, and that doesn't interfere with the music or the fighting sound effects. So yeah, I mean, I love the music as well. It's he's done a great job, and it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with for the levels going forward as well.
Perhaps we should mention it for people who don't know. Generally, on retro systems, there are like 2 methods to approach this. One is, as you said, reserving a channel, right, for the SFX. And on the other channels, you are doing something called multiplexing. So you are switching between the instruments so fast that it sounds like there are multiple channels playing than actually are playing. Or the other method, which, for example, other composers like Dave Lowe used, is you have a lead voice that is switching off every time there is an SFX sound played, and to do it in a way that it doesn't disturb the rest of the composition of the music.
Yep.
Those are actually the 2 methods that I know, at least, of handling that.
Yeah, it's true. And on the Amiga, and there are audio systems on the Amiga that let you interrupt the music track for the sound effects, and there's also there's an audio system that someone released that allows you to multiplex, and it doesn't really multiplex in the sense that it switches. It actually mixes real time the sound effects with another channel. Now, we decided not to go with either of those for various reasons. We didn't like the idea of the music because in Metro Siege, the sound effects are almost constant. If you're fighting, if you're not in a part of the scene where you're walking to the next, it's almost constant, especially in 2-player, and so you basically would be losing that 4th channel anyway for the majority of the time. And so you might be able to have something in that channel that's not really important, that sort of cuts in and out, but we didn't want to go that route because of the nature of the sound effects being so almost consistently on the whole time. And the reason that we didn't go with multiplexing is just performance reasons. We didn't want to. There's a CPU overhead to do that, and we're right on the edge, performance-wise, all the time. So we just wanted to go. And the challenge was, can we have music that is going to be acceptable with the restrictions of the channels? And personally, I think John did a great job with those limitations. And
yeah, it's really good. Now you mentioned future levels. So how many does it currently have, the game? How many levels are we working with?
Yeah, so I guess at the moment, well, so in the demo, obviously there's sort of 2.5 levels. As far as levels that we've got, I think currently 13.
Okay.
I say that because I know that the sort of last level I've been working on is level 12, but then there's 2 level 5s, which I know sounds weird, but so I think that makes 13. But that's not it. I think there might be 2 or 3 levels after that.
Okay, and is that the total amount you're planning on, or are they going to be?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. As I said, Mike from BitB, Mike and Corey, they do a lot of work on developing the levels and the story, and so I think it's pretty much. I think they've pretty much finished the story and the rough design of all the levels as far as what they're set and what the setting is and what the composure will be of different characters in those levels and what the sort of underlying storyline is. And most of those levels, as I said, up to level 12, have at least been roughed into the game, maybe with standing graphics. Some of the levels, there's a couple of levels that we've still got to do some fairly intense effects on, sort of in the order of level 2, where these are completely different ways of generating a scene, of composing a scene technically, to achieve sort of what are going to be some pretty cool looking effects.
Awesome. And you mentioned before that the guys in BitBeam are they're graphics guys that are kind of like they're doing the graphics for this, and you're making that kind of come to life, which is kind of a lot different than how a lot of games are developed. A lot of games are like, we've got the game mechanics, and now like make the graphics to go with that.
Yeah, I guess in the sense though that the BitBeam guys aren't necessarily just doing the graphics; they're also doing the art direction and the game design. So and the way that so we had this tool called Retro Animator, and there's a guy called Eric. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Scorpion Engine. Scorpion Engine's a game maker for retro platforms, and I think at the moment it does. You can output to Amiga and Mega Drive and maybe even Neo Geo's in the works. And so he developed this tool for us called Retro Animator, and that's something that lets us create these modular animations. And so in this tool, you can basically see all of the animations for every move. And so the actual fighting moves are developed inside Retro Animator, and then there's different metadata that you can tag to them. So the collision boxes for the moves, the keyframes that might have special meaning. So that sort of stuff all is just done 100% by the artists. And when I import it into the game, obviously the code has to develop the enemy AI, and how they move about the level, and when they decide to attack, and what their sort of speeds are and that sort of stuff. But the actual fighting moves are controlled by the artists in Retro Animator.
Awesome. Okay. That makes things a bit easier when you're converting that over.
Yeah,
that's actually a good question. So you are porting it over with the native code. You're not using any kind of emulator for the web version or later for the PC version.
So yeah, it is native. It's a native. We didn't want to go the sort of wrapped emulator route because we wanted to have more easy control in Steam over things like the native Steam functionality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, cloud saving, like achievements, all those things.
Yeah, we were wondering
on
about
Steam
that
want.
because a lot of people that have that port Amiga games, they just put it in an emulator wrapper and call it a day.
Yeah.
I mean, even games who didn't. I mean, you see the arcade machine behind me. For example, Xenocrisis. People were disappointed on the Steam release that at some point Bitmap Bureau didn't release any updates for the game anymore. And I'm like, man, it's a Mega Drive game. What kind of updates do you expect? The game is finished, you know?
Yeah, right.
There's nothing more to be done, you know? Some people don't understand that it's not. Sometimes you don't have to make updates. It's just a finished game, and that's it. You know.
Yeah, but so in the web version, even I don't know if you noticed, but we just added one small little feature, which is the controllable rumble when the screen shakes, just as a way to say, look, you know, when I say the web version, the modern version will have potentially integrations to make it a bit more, you know, the quality of life stuff for a modern game that we can't really do on the Amiga, but without. And who knows where the modern version will go? You know, I think, you know, the guys from Bitmeme do have desires to sort of have a more colourful and potentially widescreen sort of version that you might be able to enable. It will always have the Amiga default as an option.
Right.
We'll see where that goes. But even having said that, just being able to have you know, all of the modern conveniences and not have to worry about trying to proxy that through an emulator is why we decided to go the native. But having said that, inside our native version, it does actually do some emulation of the Amiga that we developed. So you know, the way the Amiga does its background colors with the copper and controls its sprites and stuff, that it actually runs Amiga copper lists, if that makes any sense to you guys, on the and that's just because it's easier to do that than it is to recreate the level. So, you know, when we do that web build, it's basically just the Amiga version recompiled using a different platform backend so that it knows to target web stuff instead of Amiga hardware.
One thing for sure, there will never be an Atari version because, as I know, Atari doesn't have hardware scrolling.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not because of any hate against Atari. It's just there's other platforms that will probably become first and might be easier for us to get it working on than the Atari.
I mean, look at Gianna Sisters' Atari release, where they like you are jumping from, or you're walking from one screen to another, running into an enemy straight in the first level, and you die because there's no scrolling. I'm like, what?
But having said that, I've seen some sort of modern productions on the Atari which achieve amazing things. They do tend to use a lot of RAM. I don't know if you know, I think maybe they do a lot of pre-rendering of shifted assets to overcome those limitations. So you could probably achieve something similar, I'm guessing, especially the Atari gurus out there who know that system backwards.
Right.
But I don't think it'd be a priority for us.
You mentioned other platforms it's going to end up in. What other platforms are you planning on?
Well, I mean, we don't want to get too. We want to finish the Amiga version, but the Mega Drive / Genesis would be a high on the wish list, just because once again a lot of us have those systems, and it will be a challenge because of the nature of the way that Metro Siege works is not really, the Amiga version is not really compatible with the architecture of that platform.
Okay.
So that will be it will be a more complex conversion, but it's something that's we've talked about. Possibly the Neo Geo would be something that would be more easy to get the game running in its current form on.
Wow, so I could get a version for my arcade machine, perhaps, because I just got an MVS a week ago, so I can get the Neo Geo version MVS of Xenocrisis. So hey, if you need a customer, I have this machine here. Which is actually harder than you would think, because MVSs are not produced since 20 years anymore. And the first seller who sold me one from AliExpress actually sold me a broken one that would have graphic errors, and he insisted all my Neo Geo games are broken.
Right. Yeah, I mean, our focus has got to be getting the Amiga version finished. That's the priority. The Amiga version,
right?
It's priority over everything. Luckily, the web version / modern version is not much additional lifting on top of the Amiga version, which is why they sort of go hand in hand. The other platforms will wait until the Amiga version's done before we look at those, probably.
Right.
I mean, Neo Geo would open to you a whole new market in Japan, for example.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the reason that we choose platforms is not really necessarily based on the market, and if it was, we wouldn't have picked the Amiga. It's for us. Do we have an affinity with the system? Is it a cool architecture? Is it fun? Is the community going to appreciate it more than the dollars? We don't. It's not really. It's going to be a commercial game in the sense that we will charge money for it. It's not going to be a commercial game in the sense that there's no, unless it was to, hit the lottery and blow up on Steam, which is realistically unlikely.
Wow.
It won't cover the development costs. It's a passion project for us. The retro. It's expensive to develop a game of this sort of quality, both in terms of art and music and food. And the market, none of the markets are really big enough to make a profit over just what a day job would cover for the same work. So for us, it's about passion, and.
But still, Neo Geo is very expensive. I mean, I paid over 400 euros just for the Xenocrisis MVS. I was like, holy cow. That's like the most expensive game I've ever bought, But hey, that's it, So, but it's anyway a super feeling to have a brawler on an arcade machine, on a coin-op machine. It's like a totally different feeling than playing on an Amiga or a PC. It's like, I don't know, for me it's magic. That's actually why I have an arcade machine in my room rather than a couch, So.
No, I hear, I absolutely, and we wanted to try and capture some of that arcade feel in Metro Siege on the Amiga, but it's not possible to fully recreate that experience. As you say, it's I remember playing Golden Axe on the arcade, and I was just blown away the first time just by the size and the sound and the movement and the feel. It was that, as you say, it's something special and something that kids these days will never experience really either, which is a bit sad because.
I mean, you have the advantage on the Neo Geo, at least that is what Bitmap Bureau is doing with their conversion on the Neo Geo. You can have the original music just sampled, So just put a bit more RAM into it, problem solved. Because RAM is, Flash ROM is so cheap nowadays. So at least it would sound like on the Amiga.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's as I said, picking these platforms that are cool, and the Neo Geo is an awesome platform. It's got a great architecture, very very interesting for me technically. So it will be fun to try and get the game on there, and who knows what it would look like. As you say, probably the other thing that would be an AGA version for the Amiga down the track, and so then once we've got more colourful assets, whether it be for the AGA version of the Amiga or from the modern platform, then those assets can be then used for other platforms that are less restrictive than the Amiga, that have less limitations.
Wow. Very excited to hear that future plans. Amazing. So, So this is a long-term project.
Yeah, so I mean, it started quite a while ago, and then we had really good progress, and then we've had a few long pauses just where people have been unavailable for various reasons, because it's a side project, as I said. This is not our day job.
Right.
And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to make good progress from now until it's finished, but we can't. You can never make when you've got key people, like, so I was unable to work on it for quite a long while for various reasons, and that just grinds the project progress to a halt, and there's not really anything we can do. We didn't want to bring in an alternate developer to do it because I want, I've invested so much personally into this code base. It's my baby. I want to finish the game myself, and we've very deliberately not done any crowdfunding or anything like that because we know that we want to make sure that we don't make promises we can't keep about when it'll be out. Right. But fingers crossed, as I said, there's been a lot. The demo that people see versus what is actually completed are different. There's two different amounts of work there. The content that were released in the demo has been floating around that various streamers have played it sort of years ago now. And we didn't want to put any of the newer content in just because we want to keep it as a surprise for the final release.
Right.
We don't want to have too many spoilers. So even functionality-wise, the stuff in the demo that's missing. For example, in the real version, if you play two players play the Alex character, then you get different looking character. You get an alternate character, so you don't get confused as to who's who. Stuff like that we didn't put in the demo. We want to keep it for the final version. But there are some things we're going to, as I said, we're going to do network version for the demo. We're going to release that soon. Hopefully, we are going to release player AI, so you can get the computer to play player 2 for you.
Okay.
That's something we've had for ages, but we just didn't really have a way to turn it on other than sort of a debug hotkey. So we've put some menus in for that, so that we'll release that at some point soon. But yeah, that's sort of where the demo is going to finish with network and player AI. Then we'll probably go quiet for a bit and get back to finishing off the final levels.
I mean, that would be interesting in the background, secretly making the AI connect to ChatGPT and then. Yeah, nice. Hey, it's very interesting to hear that how much thought you've put in every detail, and as you said, many games are never finished, especially on the Amiga platform, unfortunately. So glad to hear that you are about to finish it, and you really want to finish it, as I said, despite there are some drawbacks due to time constraint and other team members and so on. But that's how the way it is. I mean, even for some crowdfunding projects, I waited 5, 6, 7 years until I got the final game. That is how it goes sometimes, Look,
it's the nature of like every time a game gets released on the Amiga, I congratulate anyone who does it because finishing it is tough. Mm-hmm. And I think I've done 3 games on the Amiga, and just getting the game sort of from 90% to 100% is a huge effort. And if you've got other stuff going on in your life at the time, it's going to be tough for you. And so every time someone releases a game, I'm just amazed that they do it, and because I know how hard it is. And Metro Siege, similar. And when you've got the bigger the team, the harder it is, I guess, because any person in that team, if they're on a critical path, can sort of slow the development down.
Right.
And now I have to ask my very unpopular question. Are you planning on any limited, perhaps physical edition or anything?
No, we definitely want to have a physical edition. So I believe there's already been work done on sort of preliminary box designs and that sort of stuff that we've seen. We want the physical edition to be super high quality if we can. And a lot of the releases that have come out recently have had just awesome boxes, just as far as quality and extras. So we'll probably talk to the guys who've done that and find out who they used, and we'll shop around and try and find someone who can put together a really awesome physical edition. That's important to us, for no other reason than we want to copy ourselves. But there's a lot of collectors. When I first released my game, Blocky Skies, instantly I got emails saying, "Is there going to be a box version?" And that time I was like, I had no idea. I was like, no.
Right.
Then when we did Worthy, we did a boxed version. And I believe that sold relatively well. I wasn't really sort of too much involved in the sales of it, but
I bought that a while ago.
Yeah,
I mean, of course, I can only speak about the C64 from my experience, but I remember the last commercial release I saw from the main market for the Commodore 64 was Lemmings, and after that you had new games that were just a manual and a disc with a label on it, and around the year 2000, 2002, they slowly reversed it to a box with manual in color this time and a professional printed disc label. So it kind of had a hole in it where the quality of the retro games were like not very good, and then it picked up the pace again and quality started picking up again.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I've bought a few games off some of the developers who've released Amiga games over the last couple of years, and the quality has been awesome of the stuff I've got recently. Much higher than the quality that we did for Worthy, which was it was okay, but definitely not at the standard of the more recent stuff that's come out.
Yeah, I've been amazed just by the quality of the stuff. I've gotten some games for the Amiga, but mostly I'm getting C64 stuff, and they're sending them in a box, with the label on it is perfect. I remember getting, back when they were making things new, you'd get a thing, and the label was had some dot metric stuff on it, and it's just kind of slapped on there, kind of half-assed, and that was like commercial in 1989 or something.
Yeah,
and the stuff that's coming out now looks like, I mean, that would have, back in the day, that would have been amazing to have gotten that back in the 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, that's true. In the mid 80s, you had some very budget labels like Cosme, who did Beyond Forgotten Forest, and it was not even straight. It was like the label was put on the disc in an angle.
but Cosme made actually good games. They made like popular games. There was also things like Key Punch Software in the US. We had a lot of them. They were like the budget basic things that somebody wrote, and just terrible games. They'd throw like 3 or 4 of them on a disc. You'd buy them for like $5 at Toys R Us. It was just the everything about it was just kind of just half-assed. It was just not good.
I guess you always have the one or the other. It's like that, right?
Awesome. But you still bought them though, so they probably,
of course.
Yeah. They probably made more money than the guys who were doing the deluxe versions.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got my copy of Beyond the Forbidden Forest from Cosme, which is one of those budget development studios, which did great games, but the production quality was awful of the manual because it was photocopied like 1,000 times. You could clearly see like photocopied from a photocopy from a photocopy. But I got it like 10 years ago, still sealed on eBay, and people were actually sending me hate messages because I unwrapped it, and I didn't keep it in the shrink wrap. I was like, I want to play it, I want to see how they did it back in '85, I didn't want to have it wrapped in a cupboard and never look at it again, that's not what I wanted. And I think this experience, as AJ described, having a game new or old and have it in a box and unwrap it, it means a lot of more value to you as a game, and you are more likely to put more time into finishing and playing it. You know, you are spending more time with something that you bought with your hard-earned money than copying a crack from somewhere. You know, and that is perhaps my final question in this topic. Did you actually think about how to protect your game in any way? I mean, a lot of new release games.
As soon as it's out, there's gonna be a cracked version of it.
Exactly, that's why I'm asking, because I mean, at least for the Commodore 64 in the last 15 years, nobody cared about copy protection anymore. And as you mentioned, the Mega Drive / Genesis before, Paprium, which was the brawler released by Watermelon Games 4 years ago, December 2020, the copy protection is so bad that it even doesn't run on some versions of the Mega Drive.
I'm gonna jump in real quick because I think that the need for protection is not as relevant now as it was back in the 80s when you were making money on your games and whatnot. You didn't want people to pirate them. A lot of times then it was kids trying to get these games. They don't have the money, so they're going to go and find them somewhere to download. Nowadays, most of the people buying this stuff are adults, and they've been adults for some time, and they want to support the developer. Like I can go and the games I've bought, I can go and find them online and download them, but because I want to support the person making the game, I'm gonna buy the game whether I download the thing or not. I'm still gonna buy it because otherwise they're not going to make any more games.
Yeah, we're not going to do any copy protection for those reasons, and also who can be bothered, and also having copy protection on the hard drive version is not really possible either, and we want to be able to do digital distribution even of the disc version. We want to make it as easy as possible for people who want to buy it to just download it and play it straight away. And as you say, the people who are going to pay are going to pay. The people who aren't. And so having maybe the few crackers who are left out there would enjoy another challenge, but even those guys are all sort of part of the scene now, and might not even do it for a modern game. But I honestly, I bought a Mister. I don't know if you guys know about the Mister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Off eBay, and then when I booted it up, I went to the Amiga, and straight away I saw Worthy was already there, pre-installed. Okay. But that's just the nature of it, I guess. That's a bit disappointing because people wouldn't necessarily know. They would just play that maybe and wouldn't know that it's a modern game that's still for sale.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, the whole Amiga community is pretty small. If you don't know about which games have come out recently and which games you can actually go and buy if you want to support the developers,
right.
And the people who aren't going to pay for whatever reason, well, having copy protection is not going to make them pay, so who cares, right? Let's make it easy as possible for everyone to play it.
Yes. No breaking out the code wheel.
I mean, the newer games, as I said, that were in that period where you just got a label, a disc, and a printed manual that actually had 97 and 98. That actually had a copy protection. I still have those variants, but obviously the re-releases from 2000 plus had the copy protection removed. But the original release actually still had the copy protection, which was interesting because for Crazy News, for the C64, the programmer actually asked me if I can make a backup copy for one of his customers because he didn't know how to do it anymore. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, well, I can do it for you, no problem. I can make a remastered copy. So it's that's also something we shouldn't forget. A lot of knowledge in that field of copy protection is just not there anymore because people don't care. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the Amiga, I don't know if there's ever a copy protection scheme that wasn't defeated. So,
right. Yeah.
It's not the amount of effort you'd have to put in. I mean, you'd end up spending more time on the copy protection than the game. just to give some cracker 3 days of effort.
Yeah.
Probably
Right,
those
right,
guys
right.
doing that. They've
Awesome.
had 40 years of experience cracking, and I would have had 10 minutes experience coming up with copy protection. So yeah, it would be a walk in the park.
Obviously. Awesome. Well, I mean, from my side, we got it covered so far.
Yeah. So where can people go to find out about this and what you're doing?
Yep. So there's two places. So metrosiege.com is where you can go if you want to download the Amiga version, or click on the link to play the web version. On there, there should also be a link to our Discord, the Metro Siege Discord, which is the place to go probably if you want to get the most absolute latest info. As I said, hopefully within the next, let's say days/weeks, there'll be the network co-op demo will be live. We've got a bit of a sequence of events. We wanted to release the web version just to make sure that it doesn't have any, just shake out any problems with that. So far it seems reasonably good. People are having good experience with that. And then once that's sort of shown that it's going to be stable, then we'll do the network demo. That'll be once again announced on our Discord or on the website. And that'll be a new version you'll download. And on the web version, you just have to click a slightly different link. The network version will all be about making sure you're on a server that's close to you and the opponent you're playing with to sort of get the best experience. Yeah, so that's probably the best places to try and, if you're interested, to try and keep up with what's going on.
Just one last question. You mentioned just now there will be network servers for the closed location. So are you planning on Europe, Australia, US, and Latin America somehow?
Yeah, there's 3 servers we've got set up at the moment. We've got, I think, and we did it kind of based on what our rough ideas are about where the sort of major clusters of people are. So we've got an East Coast US server. I think the European server at the moment's in London, but we've tested that into sort of middle Europe, and it seems good speed-wise. And then we've got an Australian server. Having said that, the actual server is something that people will be able to download, and you can actually run a server on your Amiga. So if you've got a local cluster of Amigas that in your sort of room at home, you can run a server on your own, on one of the Amigas, and they can all connect in and for the absolute ultimate speed. But people would also be able to run this. It's going to be it's open source. It's already on my GitHub. People can run that server. So people would be able to run their own servers, and you just run it and then connect to it. So,
okay.
If we have people that are sort of like, let's say West Coast US, maybe if there were enough people who wanted to give it a go, we could fire up a server there for them. But we'll see. Well, this is more of a test, just to see how well it works. It's challenging doing network co-op on an Amiga. I guess time will tell if it works. It works for us. My son and I play network. Worked great. We had a great time. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Awesome.
Well, don't be too disappointed when people point something out.
Oh, well,
I've seen especially on Steam, people can be very unfair sometimes.
Look, when you release anything, you're going to have people that love what you do, people that hate what you do, and people that don't care.
That's it.
The more you release stuff, you just got to ignore those people who hate it. Haters going to hate. I guess it doesn't really bother us. We focus on the people who are into what we're doing.
Right. Well, I mean, it's also that some people just have no idea and assume things without knowing, and that's also very, very disappointing sometimes, at least from my feeling.
Yeah, but I guess if you release something, you've got to take the good with the bad. People are entitled to not like stuff that you do, right? So their opinion is valid.
Right.
Maybe we're not making it for those people, but I don't get disappointed necessarily with people who criticize things. I mean, and sometimes it's legitimate. Sometimes the point stuff out that's like, you know what, maybe that is right, but we don't focus on it. But but we don't care about people who, like, if people want to have a rant about problems with the game, that's fair enough. Like, that's why I released it. So we don't expect everyone to love it. That's for sure.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Alex. Nice. Thanks for spending your morning with us.
No, thank you for having me. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Good luck.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you. Bye-bye.